Alright everyone, this is it. Time to get to the big questions. So far, I've really just tried to give you some context as to what has gotten me to this point right now where I'm speaking into this microphone into your ear. In episode 1, I spoke about my motivation for making this podcast. In episode 2, I spoke about my life so far as a musician and as a human being. And in episode 3, I wanted to share with you my major insight that I've had as a musician, which is it's all about authentic self-expression. So now that you've gotten to know me a little better, not only as a musician, but also as a human being, in this episode, I want to explore some of the areas that are still huge mysteries to me when it comes to music and sound. I'm Eshan Kadru, aka Push for Life, and welcome to the 4th episode of Music, Sounds, and Silence. I remember even before I started to learn the drums, when I saw other drummers, I thought, I can do that. And as far as I was concerned at that moment, I just needed to learn a beat or two, and that was it. That was being able to play the drums. So I got a teacher, and when he started to show me those basic rudimental beats, I realized, oh, okay, there's a lot more to this than I thought. And I thought, okay, I need to learn these other 10 things, and then I will be able to play the drums. So eventually down the line, when I could play those 10 things, I realized, oh, okay, there's so much more to this. When I can do these 100 things, these 100 different beats and rudiments and play accents and syncopations, then I will be able to play the drums. And literally, this has gone on ever since. Pretty much throughout my whole career, as soon as I start to learn something that I thought was the necessary key to being able to play the drums, then I would realize, oh my god, there's so much more that I have to learn. And I've come to understand that that is really how it is with music in general, that the more you start to understand, the more you realize you have to understand. It just keeps getting more and more and more. So now that I've been playing my instrument for over 30 years now, yes, I am that old, whereas at the beginning I used to think there were only a few things that I didn't understand about music, nowadays it almost feels like an infinity that I don't understand about music. And that's why I'm so excited about having this podcast, because I finally feel like I have a platform now where I can invite guests on and we can talk about the deeper mysteries of music. For many years whilst I was a session musician, like I said before, it was always about styles. It was about what makes certain styles tick. That was as deep as I had to go. It was about listening to albums, taking them apart and putting them back together again. But I think it was really when I got chronically ill with the whole kidney thing, which I spoke about at length in episode 2, that's when I really started asking these deeper questions about music. I knew as an artist it was about authentically expressing myself, but sooner or later I started to ask myself, what exactly am I expressing? Where is it coming from? What purpose does it serve? You know, as artists, I think a lot of times when we create, there's something very therapeutic about it. So if we've been through both good and bad things in our life, a lot of times we will make art that processes these emotions and different states that we were in into art, and that in itself is a form of therapy, and I totally agree with that. But I found with myself and other people around me, when you achieve deep flow states and you create from that place, a lot of times I at least feel I'm channeling some sort of energy that is beyond this identity that I feel is me, if you know what I'm saying. And it's coming from a higher place. And that's one of the things where I'm like, where did that come from? I mean, think about it. Have you ever created music or any kind of art that when you've done it, you're like, I have no idea how I've done that? You know, where did this thing come from? I mean, it's not like that happens to me all the time, but it has happened to me enough times that it begs the question, who or what created this piece of art through me? The only answer I've had for myself so far is that it comes from either a higher place within me, like maybe a higher part of my brain, or beyond, something that is not even part of me but has chosen me as a channel for that specific piece of art. And to be completely honest with you, that last statement I made, that it might be coming from somewhere other than what I identify as myself, that kind of freaks me out, because if it isn't me who's creating it, who or what is it, right? And for me specifically, I have found that especially when I improvise, that is when I primarily achieve these states of flow where it really does feel like I'm standing beside myself and I'm watching my body just do something, and I'm the observer, I'm not the creator in that moment. So after many decades of these types of experiences, I think you can see how I've gotten to the point now where the mystery just seems to get deeper and deeper and deeper. Here are some questions that I hope to address with future guests on this podcast, and you might want to think about these questions yourself before you start listening to the conversations I am going to be having in future episodes. Why does music affect us the way it affects us? I mean, some music will make you feel good, some will make you feel bad, some will give you energy, some will make you feel relaxed. What exactly is happening there? I mean, there's a lot of physiological processes happening there, and emotional processes and mental processes, and at times in sacred music, for instance, a lot of spiritual processes. So how exactly is that happening? How is music affecting us? I mean, it's basically just sound waves going into our ears. But what happens after that makes music affect us the way it does? And I mean, is there a reason for music? Was music given to us as some kind of gift from the gods, or is it just something that just happens to exist? I mean, think about life without music. I think if you look back over your life, you will know that there are certain periods in your life that actually have an entire soundtrack to them. So just imagine what it would be like if there was no music. What would that mean to you? And what makes good music good and bad music bad? I think we can all agree that that's something that seems at least to be very subjective. You know, something that might be bad for you might be good for me, and vice versa. And for all of you musicians out there, where does that deep desire and need within you come from to make music and to create sound in that specific way? That's actually a question I think about a lot personally. For as long as I can remember, I've always had the need to make music. Even before I learned an instrument, I was, putting my ear to railings on staircases and banging them and just hearing the sound textures and all of that kind of thing. But I never really questioned that need. It was just there. And it's only in my later years that I've started to wonder, why do I feel so compelled by music? What draws me to make music? And I still don't really have an answer, to be honest with you. And something else that I've wondered about often is, how does music have an ability to connect human beings on such a deep level? As a working active musician over many decades, I've played on stages all over the world, and it has always amazed me how before you go on stage, there's all this rustle and bustle within the audience. And then you play music, and all of a sudden, this large group of people, maybe it's 10, 100, 1,000 or more people, become like one unit. And it's the music that connects us all. And that is something that never ceases to blow my mind, and which also shows there is a much deeper mystery to music than meets the eye or ear. And finally, I would say the deepest mystery for myself of all is, what exactly is music? I mean, we all know the world that we live in comprises of so many different sounds. But when does sound cross over into music? And what exactly happens to sound to make it music? That's the most mind-boggling thing of all. Because at the end of the day, it really is all just sound at different frequencies, different amplitudes, there's different textures going on, but something very specific happens when it becomes music. And that, I think, is the biggest question of all for myself. What the hell is music? So now that you know where I'm kind of at with all of these questions about music and sound and all of the good stuff, I think it's finally time for these monologues to take an end, at least for a while, and to get some guests on here and start discussing this stuff. That's what I'm most excited about. So I will see you in a couple of weeks. Make sure to subscribe to this podcast on, iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever it is you are listening to this show. Thank you so much for listening. It is an honor that you have been on board, and I really do look forward to The next phase in this podcast is where I will be having very interesting guests on from diverse fields all over the place, from musicians, sound designers, filmmakers, artists, you name it. Anyone who has to do with creativity and sound in some shape or form, I will hopefully have on here. And also, drop me a line, let me know what you think. And thanks again for listening, and I shall see you in episode 5 in a couple of weeks. Take care.